10 years ago, I went on a group holiday to northern France in a huge chateau. The village nearby, Grand Pré, was, I like to call it, proper French. Old grumpy men in bars wearing berets, cream on almost everything, and loads of booze. It's full on champagne country, almost devoid of humans. France has roughly the same population as the UK and roughly twice the landmass. We enjoyed travelling around the area, exploring Reims, the battlefields of Sedan and the Ardennes, and generally larking around. In the evening, we'd sit on the veranda that overlooked our personal lake, with boat which I attempted fishing from on an office chair, and throw wine down our throats, play cards, play music, and party. For those of you who think, how the hell could we have afforded this? There was 20 bedrooms and we'd filled the place up, meaning it was about 400 quid a couple for the week. I even remember bagging the best room in the chateau, resplendent with ornate cast iron balcony looking over the lake. Paintings of past tenants and owners glowered at my wife and I from the brown peeling wallpaper walls as we enjoyed our morning coffee. On the first morning, realising that our ensuite only had a bath and not wanting to cross the hall to the communal bathroom, I stood at the balcony like a mountain stag, the orange-yellow early morning summer mist enthralling me as I pissed off the balcony. I was later reprimanded for this because I'd unwittingly urinated right in front of the main door of the veranda, and due to the high concentrations of cider I'd consumed the night before and the wasp nests in the chimney, a few of us had been stung, but not me. Hell yeah. One of my mates, Miggy, sidled up to me during a hot afternoon of competitive pool and presented me with a small ring. He wasn't proposing to me, and he explained that he was going to propose to his girlfriend of 6 or 7 years sometime during our break, and could I look after the ring? Of course, I did. I stuffed it in my sock, just like I do with my own wedding ring when I'm in the gym or in the pub. Only joking, Emily, don't worry. To cut a long story short, he proposed to her by the lake, overlooked by the chateau and the gang from a distance. She said the word that she'd actually lived to regret: yes. Back in England, the groom-to-be called me and another mate to be best men. He's a greedy bastard, but I think it was a good move. Jamie is chronically disorganised, as am I. Perhaps we could lean on each other like two cards at the bottom of the house of cards that was to be this marriage. The emails for the stag do went out to the 14 or 15 unfortunate souls, or as I like to see them, as sort of floating livers, desperate not to go. The city, Munich; the country, Germany, obviously. We got off to a flying start. It was late April, and we English had been sun-deprived for months. As the EasyJet flight descended over the city, the captain announced that Munich was enjoying record temperatures, uninterrupted sunshine, mid-20s. If you'd have seen us and been sitting at the Englischer Garten, the inner city gardens famous in Munich for their flowers, lush green spaces and outside bars, and you'd seen us all coming, nothing really would have been amiss. Aside from the fact that one of our group was missing a leg, an injury sustained in combat during the Afghan war. Not that you'd have noticed, the prosthetic leg that now propelled him to the first bar was a marvel in engineering. You'd have noticed that the age range was from, 18 to 65. And sorry, Philip, I've got that wrong. We started drinking in earnest, giddy at the gorgeous weather, the fact we were all away, that Miggy was getting married that summer. After 4 steins each, we were completely hammered, stumbling around the U-Bahn singing. We must have been so annoying, and I'm eternally sorry, Munich. Our evening meal was at the famous Hofbrauhaus, almost like a castle from a Disney movie, the ground floor rammed with locals and tourists. The Umpar band's traditional beats throbbed above the heads of the revellers, unaware that in each of the Gothic dome vaults above them, the painted blue and white checkered diamond flags of Munich covered a sinister decoration from the past: the swastika. For this beer hall was the old meeting place of the Nazi Party, Walk up the massive stone steps to the beer hall on the first floor, and you can almost see the staircase turn 1940s black and white. Did Adolf Hitler speak here? The upper beer hall is like a huge vaulted semicircular railway station made almost entirely of wood. 8 or 9 long rows of benches and tables stretch away from you. More revellers, more shouting. Massive knuckles of ham hock, whisked by burly waiters, burst from the swinging double doors of the kitchen. The shouting of the chefs and the heat inside. At the far end of the hall is a stage on which a very nicely proportioned woman cracks a whip, and honestly, I'm not making this up. We take our seats, Miggy struggling to preserve his modesty in the milkmaid's blouse that we dressed him in. Dark beer is ordered, food, laughter, drink. The natural course of the evening takes us all over. Tables start a strange competition whereby a group will squat down low next to their table, one hand clutching a stein and the other outstretched. A low "oh" rises to a crescendo as the group stand up straight, downing their beer or throwing it into the air. A group of Asian businessmen, at first utterly perplexed by what was happening around them, soon found their stride, squealing with joy and inebriation. When it came to our turn, squatting down with our beers and beginning our "oh," our veteran whipped off his leg and filled the carbon fibre bowl where his thigh should have been with beer. We jumped up as one to the open-mouthed amazement of the beer hall, holding his leg aloft like a trophy, sharing a drink out of someone's prosthetic leg, obviously being something that not even the institution of the Hofbrauhaus had seen. Being one half of the best men, I asked for the bill. 45 minutes later, or longer, it hadn't come. I tried in vain to attract the attention of the surly waiters. Annoyed and impatient and drunk, I lurched up and announced something to the tune of, "These fuckers obviously don't want us to pay, so let's just leave." It almost seemed like we entered a fugue state in my memory. The group just filed out and left. About a kilometre away, it dawned on me what I had done. Not only was it the first time for me to not pay a bill and to effectively steal, but I'd chosen the institution of the Hofbrauhaus, almost like stealing 50 quid from a bunch of gangsters. Except that this was the well-respected, established, historical beer house in the centre of conservative Munich, packed to the Gothic rafters of wood and stone with massive waiters. And the total was more to the tune of 800 or 900 euros. Plus Miggy wasn't in the group anymore. We'd lost him in his blouse. I returned to the Hofbrauhaus and skipped up the stairs where we'd been 20 minutes before. Was that the sound of yelping and stifled shouts from the kitchen? I checked the toilets. I'd not passed any blokes in dresses in the street. Where was Miggy? There was nothing else for it but to pay up and find him afterwards. Again, standing in the hall, the atmosphere now slightly different, with waiters buzzing around our table. 2 of them furrowed brow and gesticulating over a piece of paper. And together they looked up at me. I held my hands up and tried to smile. I was like, "Sorry, we must have forgotten to pay the bill," I feebly parried. At this point, the waiter grabbed the bank card from my hand and stabbed some numbers into the chip and pin machine, all the time looking at me with utter contempt and hate. His ire was interrupted by a final "ah" from behind the double doors through which a battered and bruised Miggy was flung. His hands had been tied together with gaffer tape, and the waiters and chefs had obviously been giving him a good going over. Was he bleeding? Blimey, how did you organise that? They almost killed me. It must have cost you loads. I still can't believe he thought we'd organised it. He was so shit scared. "This is not an organised thing, Miggy. This is the real thing. We need to pay and leave," I said. After the transaction went through, the waiter walked down to the wide stone steps with my card in his hand. He chucked it into the street and said, "Never come here again." Walking back to the group 20 minutes up the road, we were passed by waiters in Hofbrau uniform, returning to the restaurant, obviously looking for us. A close shave. And that's when it happened. The worst thing I've ever done. Our gaggle of friends tumbled along the Bavarian equivalent of Oxford Street like a pack of meerkats, jabbing, hugging, singing and laughing again. I was at the head of the group, and the man came out of nowhere through the throng of people pressed onto the pavement. It was still mild, the city alive. He was unkempt and dirty. He was also in a wheelchair. Using his chair as a barrier and stopping our group, and he saw us as the next target. He quavered in heavily accented English, please sir, can you push me across the road? This being the most popular shopping strasse in a 4-lane massive road in the centre of the busiest city in southern Germany, flanked by thousands of pedestrians at any one time. Now, I've been brought up to help people. I've been to Cubs, Scouts, Air Training Corps, you name it, and was about to grab the handles of his wheelchair to spirit him across the road and bid him a good evening when my mate Nod, the thoughtful, perceptive and least drunk of our group, whispered in my ear, he's a beggar. All he'll do is hassle you for money. Let's just keep going. And if he hadn't have said that, I might not have engaged in the course of action that had me waking in my sleep for the next few weeks. I bent down to the man, his yellow bloodshot eyes swivelling in his gaunt, unshaven face, and explained to him that I would push him across the road, but he was not to beg for money. I leant on the handles, the small front wheels lifting off the pavement, my friends watching, Nod's arms crossed. Directly opposite us was a drop in the curb where the beggar man would carry on his journey. If I push him to the centre of the road, then give him a firm boost, I could turn and run away before he'd realise, and therefore avoid the begging that would surely come. The first few paces were normal wheelchair speed, but I steadily increased my pace, like a cricketer running up to the crease to bowl. By the halfway mark, I was jogging. One final shove and he zoomed off, his little skinny head wobbling away from me, just beginning to emanate the first guttural vowels of alarm. The gang would surely be impressed by my ingenuity. I turned to them, in the middle of the street in front of hundreds of Germans, and stuck both thumbs up. I'd got rid of him! But they weren't looking at me. They were looking past me. Looks of drunken horror on their faces. I'd misjudged the height of the curb to which the beggar man was careering. Shoddy German workmanship, something they're well known for. Don't worry, I'm joking. The two small front wheels of his wheelchair had stuck into the sudden camber of the road as it met the lowered curbside and somehow thrown him violently out of his wheelchair, but backwards into the road. He writhed around in the street. To the casual passer-by, what they had just witnessed was a drunk Englishman push a man in a wheelchair at high speed into a curb and letting them fall out, and then turn to their mates and give them a thumbs up. God, it feels awful. Running to him, I wanted to do anything as quickly as possible to make the situation right. To apologise, I wrapped my arms around his frail, weak body and tried to heave him back into the chair. But he was so small, he slipped through my grasp and fell back onto the road. He might have hit his head. He yelped, whimpered, and then became angry. Ah! Is the noise I remembered. Nod now at my side. What are you doing? He exclaimed. The two of us managed to sit him back in his wheelchair and eventually calm the situation down. I helped him up the curb near to the busker that on the next evening would ask us to leave because we were singing Bohemian Rhapsody too loudly. And his parting words you would scarcely have believed had it not been for Nod being there to hear them too. He said, €5? And that is the story of the worst thing I've ever done. Thanks for listening, guys. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like, and comment below, what is the worst thing you've ever done? See you in the next video.